What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we've got actually a genuinely positive story to cover for once, because the last few weeks have been nothing but controversy and around Rockstar and GTA 6, whether it be pricing drama, pre-order chaos, the physical disc mess, availability headaches. It's just been a lot. But there's a piece of news that came out recently that I think a lot of you are going to want to hear, especially if you've been nervous about the direction that this game is heading in. So here's the deal. Ever since Dan Houser left Rockstar back in 2020 to start his own studio, there's been this lingering fear in the community that you've probably seen the comments yourselves, that this isn't going to feel like a Rockstar game anymore. The writing is going to suffer, or it won't have that GTA 5 or Red Dead 2 magic without him. Houser is obviously a legend in the industry, and the guy, people credit for so much of what made those games hit as hard as they did narratively. So it made sense, or it does make sense, that people are worried that he did leave. But a journalist named Cade Onder, who writes for IGN and also put out really solid deep dive content on his own channel. If you've seen his MW3 documentary, you know this guy does his homework. He basically just dropped a video making the case that GTA is going to do just fine without Houser, and he backs it up by walking through exactly who's still at Rockstar shaping this game. And I'll drop a link to his full video if you guys are below, if you guys want to watch it as well. But I want to break down the main points for you here. So the first thing is worth remembering is that Houser didn't vanish from Rockstar the day GTA 6 was announced. He left in 2020, and the game had already been cooking for way longer than that. So the writing and the narrative backbone of a Rockstar game is usually locked in during the earliest stages of development. So a massive amount of what GTA 6 actually is story-wise was almost certainly written, or at least outlined, while Houser was still there. Now, Rockstar has had over 5 years since then to keep refining it. Sure, but the foundation was already being poured. Now the name Cade really wants people to know is Rod Edge. This isn't a guy working on frame rates or graphic settings. Edge is the director who handles performance and voice acting, meaning he's the one shaping how the characters actually come across on screen, how believable or how human they feel. And he's apparently one of the most influential people behind the scenes when it comes to a Rockstar game, or when it comes to how a Rockstar game plays out emotionally. And there's also a great anecdote about this, and his name is Roger Clark, and he is the actor behind Arthur Morgan, who arguably the most beloved video game character ever created. And he told Cade in an interview that he barely interacted with Dan Houser at all. And over the entire 5 years he spent working on Red Dead Redemption 2, he says he only spoke with Houser twice, and instead it was actually Rod Edge who worked directly with him on set. And apparently Houser wanted to keep some distance between Roger the actor and Arthur the character, almost like he didn't want to blur that line. He wanted to know Arthur, but not necessarily Roger. It's a small detail, but it does say a lot about how deliberately Rockstar builds these performances, and it shows that Edge, not Houser, was the one actually in the trenches directing that iconic performance. So if you love the way GTA 5 or Red Dead 2 felt in terms of acting and character direction, Rod Edge had a massive hand in that, and don't worry, he is still here. And Cade also brings up a couple of other names you should know about as well. One of them is Michael Unsworth, and the other is Rupert Humphreys. And they were both writing partners of Houser's during his time at Rockstar. They worked alongside him on GTA 4 and GTA 5. Unsworth has since left the studio too, but here's the most important part. He left right before pretty much left before the first GTA 6 trailer dropped, which means, just like Houser, the bulk of his writing contribution to this game was almost certainly finished before he walked out the door. And Humphreys, on the other end, is still at Rockstar, and he was a key writer on Red Dead Redemption 2, which, again, story-wise is considered by a lot of people to be the best in gaming history. And having his voice, still involved is a good sign for the tone and writing quality going forward for GTA 6. Then there's also Rob Nelson and Aaron Garboot. Garboot has worked on literally every mainline GTA game and is now a co-studio head at Rockstar, so he's still deeply embedded in how GTA 6 is being shaped. Nelson is also a co-studio head, and on top of all of that, we've got Sam Hauser, who is Dan's brother, who serves as the creative lead across all Rockstar games. He's essentially the guy who is setting the overall tone. Yeah, he's pretty much the guy who's setting the overall tone of the game, deciding when it should lean serious, when it should get chaotic and over the top, on all of that balancing act that makes Rockstar games feel the way they do. And obviously, this is just a handful of names of what's possibly hundreds, if not more, of people working on this game behind the scenes. But the point Cade is making, and honestly the point I want to drive home to, is that there's way more continuity here than people give it credit for. Dan Hauser leaving is a legitimate thing to be aware of, no doubt about that, but he was never the sole author of these games to begin with. It was always a team built, it was always a team type of thing. So just because one person left doesn't mean like the entire story would just crumble apart or would just fall. And pretty much, him leaving, so Rockstar has always operated as this massive collaborative machine, and a lot of the key architects behind the tone, the writing, and the performances in GTA 4, GTA 5, and Red Dead 2 are still very much in the building, working on GTA 6 right now. So if you're someone who's been nervous that this game is going to feel like a totally different animal without Hauser at the helm, I think this is genuinely reassuring news. Based on who's still involved, there's a strong chance GTA 6 ends up carrying a lot of the same DNA that made those previous titles hit so hard. Again, massive credit to Cade Onder for putting this together. Go check out his full video breakdown. I'll link it down below because we've only scratched the surface of what he covered. And that's going to do it for this one. If you found this useful or if it eased any of your worries about the game, drop a like. It genuinely helps the channel out. And if you guys are also new around here and want to stay on top of every GTA 6 update as it drops, go ahead and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.